You're listening to the Unwritable Rant podcast with your host and bourbon-soaked storyteller, Juliette Miranda.
Well, hey there, y'all. Welcome to episode 120 of the Unwritable Rant podcast. I'm Juliette Miranda, and I have two stories for y'all today about re-killing my grandmother and a not quite Christmas angel. But before the stories, there must be booze. Let's fill up our glasses. Cheers, y'all. Today, I am drinking Mellow Corn whiskey. I'll be totally upfront with y'all. This was a gag gift from a friend, and it came with the added dare of drinking it and reviewing it here on the show. So fine, I will. Mellow Corn whiskey is actually from the Heaven Hill Distillery, who make my beloved Larceny bourbon. It's been aged 4 years and bottled in bond, which is really just a fancy way of saying that it's not sourced. The mash bill is 90% corn and 10% rye and barley. It is also 100 proof and clocks in at a whopping $12 a bottle. On my first sip, I immediately thought that this whiskey tastes exactly like its color. It's yellow. Honestly, if yellow had a flavor associated with it, it would be this whiskey. It's sweet and it has just a little bit of spicy citrus in it. There's also some vanilla in there that kind of mellows and rounds everything out, but really this is just a boring kind of whiskey. It does taste far better than I expected it to, but aside from the novelty of it, quite honestly, this really isn't something that I'm just going to choose to drink. Again, it's not bad, but it's not especially great either. And that is why, with thanks to my friend, of course, I'm going to just quietly push this whiskey aside, and I'm going to reach for some Larceny instead. Because if there were ever a time when it was more than appropriate to start knocking back the bourbon, it would be the holiday season. It is my personal belief that digital media has kind of taken some of the magic out of the holiday season. I mean, when I was a kid, shows like Charlie Brown Christmas and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, they would only air once a year. You know, there were no DVRs, no DVDs, so if you missed that one broadcast, you were out of luck. The airing of my favorite Christmas specials was a holiday in itself to me as a kid. There would be popcorn and fancy cookies, and my whole family would gather around our little wood-paneled television for an hour of great storytelling and fun. Now me, I had a very special affinity for Rudolph, especially when I was in the 4th grade. That was not a good year for me, socially speaking. That was the year that I crucified a dead bunny as my grand act of rebellion, and if you want that story, it is rightfully buried in my podcast archives. Needless to say, I wasn't exactly the most popular kid in class. I spent my time playing Dungeons and Dragons and reading books about witchcraft. I also self-cut my bangs and would jam a giant Madonna-style lace bow on the top of my head every time I went out. So really, you can kind of see how this island of misfits like me would hold a great deal of appeal in my wacky little world. But beyond all of my misfit loneliness, the real bane of my 4th grade existence was music class. You'd think for someone who loves music as much as I do, that music class would be, a welcome reprieve. And it totally would have been, except that in 4th grade, we were expected to learn to play the flutophone. Are y'all familiar with the flutophone? It's similar to a recorder in that it really only belongs in Chaucer poems and Renaissance fairs, but because it's made of plastic, it's limited to the key of shrill. Put this 8-holed nightmare in the hands of 4th graders, and the resounding madness is enough to make you want to drive rusty nails right into your eardrums. Even as a 9-year-old, I found the noise incarnations that emanated from a flutophone to be excruciating. Every day, my class would troop on down to the music room for 50 minutes of grinding whistling and jarring toots into that plastic tube of doom. I hated every second of it, and not just because it sounded like ass. To save my life, I could never play the damn thing. I'm not an especially coordinated kind of chick. I mean, despite all of my years of ballet, which is why I consistently suck at sports. The evil flutophone requires an unfortunate blend of blowing, thumbing, and fingering, which is a tremendous amount of coordination for an idiot like me. So while the class would be merrily macerating jingle bells, I'd still be stuck trying to wrestle my fingers into the position to play middle C. The fact that we were all playing Christmas carols just made my pain all the more vivid, because I have a deep love of Christmas carols. I do. I spent my entire life secretly wishing that someone would ask me to go caroling with them. Oh, I'm not really all that good of a singer, but like Elf, deep down, I genuinely believe that the best way to spread Christmas cheer is through song. The best way to murder it, however, is with a fucking flutophone. And to really shoot that horse in the face, my hotshot music teacher wanted the 2 fourth-grade classes to put on a grand flutophone performance on the same night that Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer would be airing on TV. Y'all, I had that date circled on the family calendar since the beginning of December. Watching it was a tradition quite possibly just as important to me as Christmas itself, and now this musical hag wanted to deny me of it. Her eyes had that deranged glow of self-importance as she outlined the program. We'd blast our way through our repertoire of classic songs like God Bless Ye Merry Gentlemen and Joy to the World, with the grand finale being Santa Claus is Coming to Town. The prize players in the class got solos, whereas I was stuck in a back row and told to pretend to play. Were I better versed in the art of hand gestures, I would have spent that class pretending to play with my middle finger in the air. I did not want to give up one of my favorite holiday traditions to 39 flutophones and me ruining everything that I loved about the season. And then it hit me. I didn't have to. Oh, bless those days before the internet, when parents had to rely on the honesty of their children to alert them to school functions. The mimeographed invitation I was instructed to give to my parents, yeah, that wound up under a bus tire. For the next week, I mimed my way through flutophone practice. I was supposed to be learning the correct fingering movements, even if I wasn't blowing, but I occupied my mind with something far more spirited. The death of my grandmother. Oh, she wasn't doing well at all. It was tragic. And this was something I made a point to express to all of my teachers and classmates whenever I had a chance. And this was a true enough statement, seeing as how she had already died the past summer. That was, of course, a detail that I conveniently left out. Well, the half-assed sympathy of my class and instructors didn't really interest me, but it certainly set the stage for Grandma's ultimate demise. And it was a shame, really. All those poor fourth graders forced to cram their feet into dress shoes, scratching away at itchy dresses and suits, all the while drooling into their plastic instruments of grief and shrieking out Christmas songs to an audience of barely concealed cringes and grimaces. I, meanwhile, was toasty warm at home, wrapped in a blanket and spending time that actually mattered with my family. Sure, I had to re-kill my grandmother to do it, but I have no doubt that after hearing a flutophone, she would have been okay with it. And with that, I'm raising up my glass of bourbon and I am toasting to Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and all of the misfit toys out there. Cheers, y'all. You know, I totally get it. It being Christmas and all, it is absolutely hard to not feel as though there is something of an obligation to be merry. And it really can be overwhelming at times. especially if you're anything like me and your inclination is to shun and shake off instead of greet and send tidings. But for all of my misanthropic tendencies, I do have to confess, I love Christmas. And believe it or not, I even have a Christmas angel. He's not really your typical angel. For starters, I think he's a bit too short to qualify as the standard issue angel. But he does appear to be eternal. And seeing as how he more or less saved me from a rather violent Christmas brawl one year, well, I guess he's about as good of an angel as this asshole is going to get. Winter in Los Angeles is made for unemployment. There's more rain than sun, which is really kind of a relief because it prevents you from wanting more beyond the walls of your home. Now, this was some 2 decades ago, and that wet December sky would hemorrhage rain, and I would cross the days off that I had been out of work on a curling calendar. I was at 329 and counting. And all I could really do was wonder whether there was something more for me out there. The guy I only sort of half-liked was off on tour with his band. My roommate, Loopy, had moved to San Diego, and all of my friends were heading to their respective families for Christmas. So that meant the only company I would have that holiday would be my cat. I really did think that I would be all right. As something of a loner anyway, I figured it wouldn't be a big deal to just hole up in my shitty apartment with a pile of Christmas movies and a bag of popcorn. And really, I was fine with it, I was. Until the day of Christmas Eve. And then I watched Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And then, damn it, loneliness kicked me in the ass like a spastic reindeer. Suddenly, I missed my friends. I wanted my family. My isolated cocoon no longer seemed comforting, but smothering. And the couple of glasses of booze that I had knocked back really only made me restless and anxious. And my holiday spirit? It went from middling to non-existent. Oh, I did not want to spend Christmas like that. I decided that I needed a project. Something that would occupy me and give me a little bit of cheer. And at the same time, maybe make me feel just a little bit closer to home. I had $75 in my wallet. It was the most extra cash that I had had in weeks. And it came as a result of selling off most of my CD collection. My original plan was to stretch it out over the next month on food and gas. But goddammit, I really needed to do something that was going to bring just a little bit of festivity into my holiday. So I decided to splurge. I decided to use that cash to buy the fixings to make lasagna from scratch. It doesn't sound like much, I know, but really it was exactly what I needed. The entire process would take all afternoon and into the evening, and the meal would be comforting and delicious, and if I had any money left over, I'd buy an actual bottle of wine and not the $2 chuck that I'd been swilling. Since I had already started drinking, I decided it was probably my best option to walk to the grocery store. It would be about a mile or so, but even that sounded appealing. The weather had finally cleared enough to make the sun peek through the fog, so I grabbed my shopping tote and wandered outside for the first time in nearly a week. I took the scenic route down Ventura Boulevard, checking out Christmas decorations and store windows, and I actually started to feel a little bit good again. And then I hit Tower Records. Oh yeah, Tower Records was in business then, and it was usually the area on Ventura Boulevard where you could find, a couple of people scattered in the corners looking for handouts. I was never really sure if these people were homeless or just out-of-work actors looking to fund a new round of headshots. Either way, though, I definitely did not have anything extra to spare. Which is what I told the guy who approached me looking for $1. I wasn't rude. I didn't shove him out of my way, but I did keep walking as I said it. because I didn't know who that guy was, and I wasn't especially excited about the prospect of being mugged for my lasagna money. He, however, took offense. And as I walked away, he called out to me, "Merry Christmas, you bitch! I don't have my act together like you do." I have never heard Merry Christmas spit out with quite so much venom. And y'all, I did not respond well at all. Because that small bit of not quite merry spirit that I had been working up toward was shaky at best. And to have this guy judge me for not coughing up a buck, well, it kind of snapped what I had left in my reserve. I flung myself around and I went Ebenezer on that guy's ass. I'm screaming, "You think I have my act together? I have been out of work for exactly 329 days. If I want any goddamn cash, I'm going to have to start selling my blood or my body. So no, I do not have any cash for you. I haven't got anything together. So you can take your fucking Merry Christmas and eat it." Oh, I was sobbing hysterically as I berated this guy in Ventura. It was the single worst cocktail of anger, humiliation, and anguish that I have ever experienced. And it was about to get worse. Because this guy, this everyday dude who may or may not have actually needed a handout, reaches into his pocket, extracts a sweaty dollar bill, and holds it out to me. "Here," he says, "you take it." And for a minute, I actually considered it. Part of me just wanted to take the dollar bill for spite. Part of me wanted to take it because I really did kind of need it. But I couldn't do it. So I just shook my head and I kept walking toward the grocery store. It was all I could do, quite honestly. I don't really know what would have happened if I went back home with nothing to show for myself except a denied dollar and a verbal assault. I needed that lasagna more than ever, if for no other reason than the sense of accomplishment making it would give me. I was weepy and far from okay as I made my way into the grocery store and began my shopping. I really wanted to feel merry. I did. It was Christmas, for fuck's sake. And if I couldn't hit merry, then at least I just wanted to feel the slightest bit of peace. Unfortunately, a grocery store, particularly on Christmas Eve day, is the last place you should be when you want to feel peace or goodwill towards your fellow man. It was chaos in there. I don't know why I thought I could just run in and grab what I needed. The store was packed with last-minute shoppers and general maniacs throwing tantrums over shrimp cocktail and punches over fruitcake. Me, I just hoped for the best. And as I wandered into the fray, someone immediately knocks into me. And it wasn't an oopsie kind of push. This was a hardcore shove right into my back with enough force to make me stumble and drop my shopping basket. I wasn't exactly what you would call stable at this point. I mean, I'd already taken down that random street guy, and he hadn't even laid a hand on me. But that shove, that did it. Screw Christmas, forget festivity. Someone was about to take the brunt of all of my frustration right there in the produce section. But before I could unleash my rage, I feel a hand on my arm. It was a gentle touch, not some potent grab, and the person, in all sincerity, apologizes for pushing me. Here, he says, "Let me get your basket." I turn around and look down at this man as he grabs my basket. And I say look down with all seriousness because this was a short man. Now, me, I'm an average height. I certainly don't tower over anyone in a crowd. But this guy, he maybe came up to my shoulders. But our eyes meet as he hands me my basket, and it's then that I realize I know him. But really, it would have been hard to not recognize that twinkle in his eyes. Y'all, that nice man, that was Wheel of Fortune game show host Pat Sajak. He genuinely smiles at me, apologizes again for pushing me, and then he says, "Merry Christmas." He then vanishes into the crowd so quickly I have to wonder if he was ever really there at all. But I knew. My Christmas angel was Pat Sajak. He wasn't family and he definitely wasn't a friend, but damn it, he was the only familiar and kind face I had seen that holiday. And with those two little words, Merry Christmas, he restored just enough of my holiday spirit to get me through. And now, well, I'm raising up my glass to drink to Pat Sajak and to you. Thanks for listening to this podcast, y'all. Merry Christmas. Well, I meant it, y'all. I hope you have a very merry one. Be sure to head on over to theunwritablерant.com if you want to learn more about the show, find my book, or look me up on social media. Every possible link you might need is right there on theunwritablерant.com. Well, that's enough out of me. I'm going to go knock back some more holiday cheer, hang out with my guy, and maybe watch a little Rudolph. Cheers, y'all.
Go to theunwritablерant.com and sign up to get early access to interviews and new videos. You can hear new episodes of The Unwritable Rant on radiovegas.rocks every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern and on IPMNation.com on Saturdays and Sundays at 6 p.m. Eastern, and hear best of episodes every weekday at 3 p.m. Eastern. And don't forget to connect with Juliette on Twitter at Morning Neurosis.
Girl, you was pretty as a Sunday morning, standing on the corner at Carondelet. What you say we make our way up to Bourbon, couple hurricanes and a hand grenade, and get blown away. Let the chips fall where they may. If it's all the same, what you say, bon ton, hey, pretty mama, I can smell the gumbo. Sweetest taste of honeysuckle on my lips. Good God Almighty, I can hear the trombone. Every heart ought to beat to a rhythm like this. Come a little closer, honey, let me hold you. Nothing tastes better than a bourbon kiss. You can be the flower on my magnolia. Every heart ought to beat to a rhythm like this.